Hi, everyone. Welcome to Vizlib Appy Hour. This is the show where we help you make your data talk. And today I have a really special guest, Julian Villafuerte, and he's a 2022 Vizlib Legend as well. And so we're so excited to have you here. We're gonna talk apps. We're gonna show you some cool things that he's done, and you can hear a little bit about Julian's background as well. Julian, would you also like to make an introduction of yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Julian. I've been a Qlik consultant for around 10 or 12 years, and I love working with data. All my career has been focused on developing dashboards and getting the business people all the answers they need. So I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. That sounds perfect. And this is Appy Hour. So we've always asked people to bring in a drink. We've got someone saying hi. That's Joe. Hi, Joe. And we also have Hector. Hi,
Hey,
Hector.
Hector. How are you?
So, do you have any fun or cool drinks today?
I had a lot of issues with that because I know you always discuss your drinks. On one hand, I wanted to show like a cool tequila drink, but then again, it's 11 a.m. for me, so that's not very good. But I went all the way to the other side and I told myself, well, maybe orange juice is not enough. So I end up drinking this bad guy. This
Ah,
is a drink called carajillo. I think it's very popular in Spain and Cuba as well. It's a mix of a shot of espresso and a little bit of orange liquor and a lot of ice. You shake everything and you get a great drink. So I guess we'll go with this one today.
that sounds great. Me, I have something boring. We've got a lot of people saying hi to you.
Hello,
Go
everyone. I
ahead.
see everyone is very friendly today. And we have a couple of people speaking in Spanish as well. Thank you for
Yes.
being here.
And just saying, now we're talking coffee and orange liqueur.
Yeah. So if you take one or two of these drinks, you start shaking and you start seeing unicorns and dragons. So I have to keep it simple and just bring one drink with me.
Oh, well, I will. Here I am. I'm healthy today. Water.
That's good.
But it's because I know this is Appy Hour. You have to have drinks, but I'm trying to limit my sugar intake. If you watch the show, you know I've famously quoted, water is boring. So, but I'm trying to limit my sugar intake. But I've been eating candy. So I am drinking water. We've got some more
So you're
Spanish.
not limiting your sugar intake that
I'm
much, right?
balancing it.
So it's water, but I have 2 tons of candy, so that's
Yes.
good.
Yeah. I love candy so much. I don't understand this. My high school Spanish I've not been keeping up with it.
Don't worry, I will try to translate most of them. So now they're just mocking me because it's 11 a.m. and I am drinking. So I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry, mom.
No,
I don't know if
it's
you're
okay.
watching this, but I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's 5 p.m. somewhere, and where I am, it's 6 p.m. So that's
More
totally
than
all
enough.
right. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, so you are a data viz specialist and you work with data viz. Can you share a little bit of how you got here? Maybe, what brought you to data viz? It was something new for me. I didn't even know it was a job I could do, and now here I am. So, what brought you here?
Well, I have to say, I was lucky. When I was in college, I got an internship in a company that used Qlik. So I had no idea about business intelligence or, anything about analytics. I knew a little bit of SQL and that was it. But I got lucky. So I made an internship there and then I started a career as a consultant. So actually, database and data analytics, it's the only real thing that I know.
Mhm.
So I guess it was just a matter of luck. But I love working with data. I work with data models. I mean, it's just the means to get to that visualization. I don't love it, but presenting data, telling stories, helping people find the answers they want, that is amazing. So I'm very happy with the type of job that I perform, and I'm a passionate data analyst.
Oh, that's so great. Did you study something data related in college, or was it just the internship that brought you onto the data side?
The standard IT career. So a little bit of programming, a little bit of networking, a little bit of database, but nothing very specific. Actually, I just got lucky and I learned everything on the run when I started my internship and then as a full-time consultant. So I guess I picked it up in the way.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of like me. I didn't really have a background in data. It's something that you kind of get thrown. It kind of comes your way, and then you get thrown into the data viz world. And it's a really big world, and it's really important. And it's hard. A lot of people don't realize it that it's
Yeah.
so important.
Because it's very complex. Because I mean, you have the storage part and the hard data modeling and extracting, transforming, the security layer when you have to make everyone a data analyst, but still you want to remain very, very cautious and control all the access. And on top of that, you have business intelligence and maybe machine learning or data science. So it's a big field. And if you don't know much about it, it can be a little overwhelming when you start working with it because you have like a dozen platforms, a lot of languages, programming, SQL, Python, R. So that's a lot, but I think it's worth it for the individual and for the companies.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's you're also able to play around with data, which is something we're gonna talk about further today. And it doesn't have to just be work. I think when people think data visualization, they think, boring KPIs, lots of bar charts and pie charts and not anything cool, but you can actually take data viz to a whole nother level. And I think that's
Yeah, everyone starts with sales and maybe with the accountants. So I have my assets and my liabilities. It's a boring table. But when you start exploring other data sets, for example, video games, sports, if you like wine or beer, there are a lot of data sets out there. You can have a lot of fun. And in the end, I think as a consultant or as a developer, you're your toughest customer. So maybe you have some people in your company that ask a lot, but in the end you know what the tools and the analysis can make for you. So you're always very, very hard on yourself. So when you work with data that you like, I guess that's where your analytics can really shine.
Yeah, yeah. And when you look for these data sets, you mentioned kind of fun data sets. Is there a specific website you use? Is there a way you import the data?
Mm, I mean, you can start Googling for data sets, but that's not very efficient. Sometimes I use Kaggle, but then again, it's very difficult to find something really, really fun or really, really robust. So I end up going to other type of websites. So for example, sports websites which are based on HTML, you can still go with ClickView and create one or two for loops and start downloading all the information. So I would say that's the most common thing for me. Just go into the web and maybe, ESPN, Fox Sports, or things like that. And you start downloading the results or the plays or the statistics for all the players. So I guess that's pretty much it.
Yeah, yeah. We have Joe saying another vote for Kaggle. We're big fans of Kaggle here at Vizlib, especially on the IS team. We use it a lot. We're not sponsored, but Kaggle, if you're
But
watching,
we wish.
yeah, please. We're like your number one fans here. Joe says, "Whoa, click view to scrap data. I should have known."
Yeah, the old classics. So you start working with the HTML connection and you bring the old fashioned tables and a lot of loops, a lot of QVDs, and then you start the transformation, creating the data model and start telling your story. But yep, like in 1999.
Yeah, 1999. Um, So we won't focus on the data modeling and whatnot because it's harder to show, but I'd love to hear about your thought process when you make data. We can start with kind of inspiration. Is there a place you go to for inspiration? Do you come up with it on your own?
Well, I guess it depends. Whenever I start a new project and I'm facing a new data set, I always go for the simple things. I create a straight table with all the metrics I can find and start switching the dimensions. So that's just me exploring the data and seeing if maybe there's an outlier or there's a lot of fields here and just a few categories on the other side. And I start making assumptions. So I start creating separate charts to try to analyze every single bit. But I'd say in general, for inspiration, I usually go Twitter or Pinterest, Instagram. So it's always good to be in touch with the developers. And I'm not talking specifically about Qlik developers. There are a lot of very talented people in Power BI or in Tableau or even in the web design world. For example, the people that create the color palettes have a lot of websites and a lot of blogs, and I really love what they do. So I follow them on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, and I'm stealing things here and there. So I have like a big arsenal whenever I need a data palette or a cool chart or maybe some inspiration for a crazy visualization. I have
Mhm.
a lot of things available for me, right?
Yeah, yeah. I like to personally use Reddit. I don't know if you ever use it, but there's a subreddit called Data is Beautiful, and they have really cool visualizations, and it gives me a lot of really cool ideas of things to do. So
And
that's one way.
how violent is it? Because I've been in Reddit before for video games, sports, and other topics, and it gets really intense. So how's the database community in Reddit?
They're very nice, supportive,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because for the Data is Beautiful, so we do have a show where it's a Viz of the Month, so we show good and bad charts, and I actually find a lot of both on Data is Beautiful. So it can be a little, if you don't understand data viz, I think if you just come on there for inspiration, it's easy to kind of to maybe go down the wrong track because you see something and you say, oh, okay, this is good data, but it is just the public entering things, and we've seen things where we think like maybe that's not the best visualization, or it's a little bit, it doesn't make sense, but sometimes you come across a good one and it's very clear, it's nice, and it's pretty, and the data sets it's amazing. They get data that I don't even know where it comes from. They'll have like specific data about their hometown, about like maybe like one type of tree in their hometown, and it's crazy. And you also have people collecting their own data, which I think is dedication. They'll,
What do you
like,
expect? That's a lot of work. I tried maybe 5 years ago to start recording, how much I spend on gas or food or rent. It's very hard.
and Joe mentioned that it's well moderated too, so it's usually safe for work, unlike other
Mm.
areas of Reddit. Yeah, I agree. I think it's really great, and surprisingly, they also have. If you want to see, not just what's good, but also what's bad and what not to show, there's one called Kpi Design. They have a lot of stuff. It's not just design of graphs, but they also have like furniture and whatnot. But sometimes they also have visualizations, which I think is great to show you kind of what not to do and what doesn't make sense, and especially for colors. If you want to know, what works and maybe what colors are confusing or is not colorblind friendly, Crappy Designs is great for
Yeah,
uninspired.
those are a lot of fun, but every now and then you see something strangely similar to the work that you have done, and you might be a little depressed, but they're really fun.
Yeah, yeah. Don't ask me to look at like my first dashboards. They're no good. They don't tell a story. It's just me saying, I scatter plot looks good. Let me just throw in every single color, everything. It's the most colorful thing
Yeah,
ever.
animation, color, layers, everything.
Yeah. We have Karen Heartless, who says that NYC Open Data is a good source of data. Thank you for this link, Karen. I will look into that Yeah, we love good data sources. So if anybody has one that's interesting and maybe you don't have time to build something, but you want the Vizlib IS team to do it, feel free to pop it in and we'll take a look and see what we can do. Yeah, finding data is sometimes the hardest part, I think, of data visualization.
Yeah, you spend 80% of the time looking for the data or start capturing it in your huge Excel files. But definitely it's the hardest part. It's not as available as you might think in some cases.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. And also the cleaning of the data, just because you have the data doesn't mean you can
Yeah,
work with it.
a lot of transformation and a lot of manual work. Because in the end, you're not working with huge data sets. So every now and then it's easier just to go straight to the muscle and do it manually, one by one. But in the end, if you get a cool data set, if you can tell a good story, I guess that's worth it. But then again, we're boring people. So instead of going out on a Saturday night, we're at home cleaning data for our new dashboards.
We've got Robert Svevik saying, imagine if there was a way to fully immerse himself into a new data set.
Robert has been working in a lot of amazing things. Maybe we can talk about that in another program, but he's been working with really cool stuff.
Did you hear that, Robert? Bit of a call out.
Come on, next year? Oh, maybe next month, Robert.
Yes, maybe next week. And so after you get your inspiration and you kind of know what you want to do, what's next after getting in a table?
You start working with simple visualizations. So I go for the line chart, the bar chart, and the pie chart. So those are the classics, and they're classics for a reason. So I start working with the trends, whatever you want to do with time, year to date, month to date comparisons. Then I go for the total share. For example, if I'm working with sales, so I want to see who's the biggest one, who's the smallest one, and with rankings. But I guess the information is very fun. It's very interesting because usually the insights unfold themselves. So you're looking at the table, you're looking at the really ugly and basic chart, and then inspiration comes automatically. So you start thinking maybe a violin plot or maybe a histogram can be nice here. So I guess it's just a matter of reading the data, understanding the process that you're working with, and then ideas come naturally. So you start to work with complex data, complex analysis, creating variables, and all of a sudden it's 10 p.m. and you're ready to go to bed. But the important thing for me is to be open. When you have maybe your 10 or 12 favorite charts, when you're familiar with the analytical process, it's just a matter of reading, paying attention, and start working. Everything will flow naturally.
Right. Okay. I saw you mention pie chart. If Emily was here, she would not be happy.
That's a tough topic. I'm not against pie charts. When they have two or three slices, I guess they're pretty good. I understand where the anger and hate comes from, but I will say they're not my favorite, but I don't hate them either. So, in the middle ground.
Yeah. Okay. So I heard the first chart that you mentioned was a line chart, which is interesting because I think here on our side, we always on the IS team we love bar charts. I think that's the consensus around us is that we love bar charts to start off with. We have someone saying bed by 10 p.m. How boring.
You know me. What can I say? I need my 8 hours.
Yes. And wake up early and then back to some data.
And alcohol at 11 a.m. Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
day.
That's why bed by 10 because you start early, you end early. Makes sense.
You need the energy.
Yes. We have a question here from Chad saying, what does Vizlib provide for Qlik Sense? I can answer that. So we've got 5 packages. you can reach out to our sales team actually, but they provide extensions on visualizations like finances. We have a collaboration extension. We have self-service, library, and one more that I am forgetting right now. I'm totally blanking.
So it's library, self-service,
Self-service, collaboration.
Gantt,
Oh, Gantt
Gantt.
and Gantt.
That's
Yes.
the one.
And yes, and there's a lot of new charts that Qlik Sense doesn't have. For example, Gantt and etc. We actually show a lot of them in previous episodes, so feel free to check out past episodes of Appy Hour, and we show off a lot of cool things in them.
Yeah, I'd say you take the base components of Qlik Sense, maybe the standard bar chart, line chart, and you can make it better with Vizlib. You can add reference lines, reference objects, you can add pop-ups, you can manage your visualization in a more flexible way. So you can do more with the same old charts, but you also have a lot of new functionality. For example, I love the calendar. It's amazing because you have a little calendar, you click it, it expands, and then you have standard buttons where you can select the year to date, month to date, last month, or crazy time periods. So I guess it has to do with functionality, but also with how flexible you want to be in the design process.
Oh, that was so well put. Yeah, it kind of it adds some extra insights to your data and that helps it be more clear. Plus, a lot of new charts. I highly recommend you take a look at our website, vizlib.com, vizlib.com, and we'll show you everything on there. We've got one question from Yohem. How about the Qlik Insight Advisor?
Oh, that one is tough. You want to take it or should I go?
I don't know who it's meant for. Is it for both of us?
I don't know. I like the Inside Advisor. It's very interesting what you can do, specifically now that you have multiple languages and now you can, interact with data in a different manner. But I have to say, and here's a disclaimer, I'm an old-fashioned guy. I prefer to do my analysis in the old way. I like to start checking the data, creating some filters, creating some silly tables and charts, and explore it myself. So I'm not a huge fan of just going to the Insight Advisor and just clicking, give me something. But I understand it's a different use case. So there are a lot of people, a lot of moments in your professional life where you need quick insights. So I guess that's pretty amazing. And the work that Elif and the rest of the team have done, it's amazing. But I'm an old-fashioned guy, so I want to work slowly towards my dashboard. So I do it manually.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. For me, I haven't used it in a long time. I did an internship at Qlik, and that's actually how I got into data viz. And in the very beginning, when I've never used data viz, I never started anything like that. I would actually use the Insight Advisor quite a lot, not just to add charts in, but to kind of know what I'm doing. And it's a great way if you have a really big data set and you don't know where to start. I think it's a great way of getting inspiration from there, but I don't think I've ever ended up with a chart in my dashboard from the Insight Advisor. I think I've always made some tweaks to it, but I do think it's really great for inspiration.
And I think it's weird because on one hand, we're working with data literacy and making everyone more capable of using and exploring data. But on the other hand, we're giving them tools to be lazy, so to
Yeah.
speak. So for example, you have a lot of extensions that can tell you more about the data you're already seeing. There are some extensions where, for example, if you add a bar chart, they start saying something like, okay, here's a bar chart with the top 10, and this one is the biggest one, and this one is the smallest one. Okay, so you're trying to, like close caption the chart. So that goes a little bit against what data literacy stands for, but then again, it's very useful for some users and some use cases. So I guess it's just a matter of balancing everything out. So when, where, who is going to use every little thing. but it's amazing that you have everything in the same platform, so you can adapt to every situation.
This brings us to our next question, which I think it's great. Joe asked, do you have any thoughts on what you really liked about the recent Qlik World announcement? When you said the thing about being lazy, it reminded me of something, but I want to hear your thoughts on it first.
Um, well, I have to say, maybe I'm becoming more bitter as I get older or more experienced, but I remember the first 3 or 4 connections or the old Qlik World when I attended, and I was amazed. The announcements and the acquisitions and everything, it was just crazy. It's a lot of information. And then again, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I feel like the last 2 years have not been that impactful, at least for me. I know there's a lot of movement in the data integration world, but that's not exactly my thing. So I haven't been as surprised as other years, to be honest.
Okay. How do you feel about Auto ML?
Oh, that's crazy. That's amazing. That's a very good thing to have, but you will need very capable professionals. When I started exploring the data science field, and I have to be very clear, I'm no expert. I just create my hello world style algorithms, but it's very complex. The algorithm itself runs automatically in most of the platforms, so you don't have to build it from scratch, but you have to understand when and why you should use it. And there are a lot of micro things you have to tweak to make it work perfectly. So I guess it's going to be interesting to see how the market receives it and how companies use the machine learning component.
Yeah. Do you think it will take over kind of, what we do in building out apps, or do you think that the machine learning will never really take over what a BI developer does?
No, I guess they can both coexist. I think they're focused on different needs. The part of extracting and exploring and giving day-to-day data to the users, I guess we'll keep it that way. But the new technologies are opening new doors and new applications and new competitive advantages for companies. So I guess they will coexist and they will work very well together, in my opinion.
Okay, that's good. That's a very positive way of thinking. So, okay, now that you have your dashboard, well, you've got a bunch of charts on there, you're starting to piece it together. How do you know what you want to take away, and how do you know what you want to keep?
It's usually a flexible process because whenever you create your charts, you end up with, let's say, 50 different charts, and you end up getting rid of 20 of them. And after that, you have to tell a story. So you have to start from the beginning. You don't go the Star Wars route where you start in the middle and then you go back and forward and start jumping around. So you have to create a discourse. You have to tell a story. So you start selecting the most relevant KPIs, maybe start with those and give the big picture first. And then you go maybe, for example, with a sales dashboard. What can happen in a sales dashboard? Well, sales can go up, sales can go down. If sales go down, for example, what's going to be the next question? So you have to be like Nostradamus here. So you have to always be ready for the next question. So if the sales are going down, what's going to be the next question for my users? Well, maybe where, maybe what, maybe why. So you create a separate tab, maybe recycling some of the objects that you already created and start answering those. And maybe the old DAR model, dashboard analysis and reporting, it's still useful in some way. So I guess you start with prioritizing your KPIs and start answering the following question. And after 2 or 3 layers of answering the following question, maybe you have a robust dashboard that you can start trying with the users.
Okay, that's great. So you kind of you get rid of everything. You figure out if your answer really matches the question, and then you show your customers, your clients again, uh, And then do you go into do you start to, figure out the design and whatnot? Is this part of your process as you move, or is that something you do at the very end?
No, I guess I do it right in the middle. I'm very picky with my dashboard, so I want everything to be just the way I imagined it. That's one of the reasons why I use Vizlib a lot, because I want the exact color and the exact distribution, with icons and the pop-ups and the functionality. So that's something I work on very early in the process. I don't like working with messy data. So usually I start with the navigation schema. So my calendar or my main filters, if I'm using, for example, the Vizlib extensions, you have the sidebar where you
Mhm.
can bring in more filters or more KPIs. So I usually start with that one. And then I start adding the KPIs and the analytical objects. So in the end, I have a partially functional dashboard, not so hard to see. So I guess I do it on the fly.
Okay, so you kind of combine both. That's awesome. That's also something that I like to do. I find that maybe sometimes I spend too much time on the design, and then I'll say, okay, this chart's not needed. I'll throw it away, and it hurts me because I'm like, I spent so much time perfecting this one. So I should, have a better balance between like answering the question and also doing the design, but you just get so lost in it sometimes. Sometimes once you start playing around with the settings, you're like, there's so much you can do. I want to go more and more. Joe's
Yeah.
asking, do you wireframe designs outside of Qlik?
Not really. In the beginning, when I had some issues working with the platform, I used the old pen and paper. But I think now, specifically with Qlik Sense, it's much easier to do it on the fly. So maybe I'm not, checking my color palettes and arranging the fonts as well as I should. But I just start dragging and dropping the objects, so I do it on the fly.
Okay. We have Robert saying something. You said we might not be needed. Have you seen Dolly 2? And then here's the link, openai.com/Dolly2. I don't know what Dolly is. Have you ever used it?
No, I've never used it, but sounds interesting. So maybe we should check it out.
Okay. I will look at this later. This is very interesting. He says, we have a few more years left. Okay, that's good.
I hope
Oh,
so.
good. We have chat asking, can Vizlib extensions be used in Qlik Sense? Yes. It's
Yes, maybe I can show you an example of an application. I'm actually using Qlik Sense, so that might clarify your questions.
yes, that's great. So we've seen your process. Yes, you do have an app to show today, and it's interesting. I can't wait to see it. Let me pull it up on the screen, and I'd love to hear your thought process as you built this out.
Yeah, a little bit of context here. I love basketball, so I've been working with this data set for quite a while. I have not published it yet, but I'm using data from this website. It's called
Mhm.
Basketball Reference. And as you can see, it's a very classic website with a lot of HTML tables. And I use ClickView to bring everything down to QEDs and start working on my data model. But this thing here is in Qlik Sense. So yes, you can use Vizlib extensions here, and they work very well. There are a couple of extensions that have like two separate versions for the local and the web deployment, but it's pretty much the same functionality. For example, here you can see some data from the NBA. And as you can see, I went crazy with the icons and the colors. It's something that I really like, speaking about basketball and database. So here's an example. I love this new object. It's one of the latest, the Vizlib tiles and the
Yes.
Kpi Designer. Those are amazing because you can mix and match. So for example, here, it's just a single object, but you can mix an image and you can work with labels and then you can work with gauges even. So it's very nice for a designer, when you can create something just the way you imagine it. So I love this. And if you're a Qlik developer and you're familiar with variables and set analysis, you can create really, really complex stuff. So for example, here, every team has a color, and obviously the rankings can change. So using variables, you can adjust everything. The background, the transparency, the layers, it's very, very cool.
Wow. Okay. So for tiles, you're using a KPI designer inside of the tiles as well.
Mm-hmm. And here I'm using the classic scatter plot, but the interesting thing is that you can use icons. So this is an analysis that it's not very common, and at least in my country, you don't see scatter plots in every single report in the sales department or in finance. But I like a lot what you can do when you mix two variables. For example, here you have the points per game. So if you're up high, you're a very good scoring team. And if you're here, maybe you need to work on your offense. And on the
Hmm.
other side, you have the points that the opponent scores on you. So if you're here, you have a very bad defense. And if you're here, you're very efficient. So as you can see, we have a reference line here. And most of the good teams have both a good offense and a defense. So they're here. For example, the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors in the finals tonight. And you have the not so good teams like the Kings and the Rockets. So it's very nice when you have maybe 20 or 30 elements in your field and you can put it in a visual way, just like this. It's something that I really like about Vizlib, when you can work with images and pop-ups, maybe colors and traffic light gauges. It's really flexible for you as a designer.
Wow. Okay. Is this data being updated in real time?
Not real time, but daily. So I go to the website. I already have a task in my Qlik Sense environment. So I go to the website, I bring the information here, and I start exploring it. Right now, we don't have a lot of games because we're on the finals already, but usually you load maybe 6 or 7 games. It runs automatically. So it's very nice for me to explore in the morning with my breakfast.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not a big sports person, but this is easy to read and it lets me kind of know who's good and who's not. So, yeah. So, points of the game, higher the better. And then opponent's points of the game, the lower the better. So, it looks like the Celtics and is that the Suns?
The
Looks like they're
Warriors, the
doing pretty well.
Heat. Yeah, you can get a lot of information out of these charts. But if you want to go to the details as well, you can use the tiles in conjunction with some other things. For example, here I'm using the Vizlib switch, so you can change the metrics in a per game basis or the
Mhm.
total basis. And I'm using the sliders to filter. So I have my rankings here. For example, here I have the points, the rebounds, and the assists, but I can change it. So for example, if I don't want to see the rebounds and I want to see the number of field goals, I only change the field here. And eventually, if my internet connections allow it, you can see the new metric. And of course, you can filter. I want to see all the players, but only the players with at least 5 points per game and maybe 3 or 4 rebounds. So you start filtering your data and you can change the perspective. So you have maybe a dozen metrics, but you don't want to see them all in the same dashboard. So you can select what you're going to display. Once again, as long as my internet connection wants to help us. Yeah, there you go.
Wow, that is amazing. I did not know that the Charlotte Hornets were doing so well. Are they doing well? It looks like they're doing well.
They are
Oh,
not. Maybe
no.
they're scoring a lot of points, but the opponents are scoring even more. So they're losing a lot of
Okay.
games.
Okay, didn't even know the Minnesota Timberwolves Wolves were a team.
That's good.
I'm
Yeah,
learning so much.
they're not very relevant right now, but yes, they are a team.
We've got one question. How did you get the player images?
Mm, as you might know, the data itself is hard to find and hard to manage. For all the data, I went here to this website, so it's
Mhm.
Basketball Reference. they have a lot of logos. For example, for the team logos, I use the ones that you can find here. Actually, you can go to sportslogos.net. But for the player images, I went to nba.com and they have the full rosters and the images are public. So I had to do some manual work and start copying and pasting the addresses so I could include them as variables and fields. So whenever I have a ranking, I can reference the player field and I immediately know the player image link and the logo and the color as well.
Wow. Okay. So you're using a link instead of embedding the image into the app.
Yeah, since I'm working in Qlik Sense, I figured it was better to keep everything up there in the
Mhm.
cloud. So I only copied and pasted a couple hundred of links with all the
Wow.
images, and I created a huge Excel spreadsheet with all the data. It was tough. Some of my friends actually helped me. So
Wow.
yeah, you have to do it manually.
Oh my gosh. And this is in real time. That is amazing. Do you know about the tiles flip function that we have now?
Yeah, that's pretty good. Actually, I want to include it in my dashboards. I've been very busy with some projects in the company, so I haven't had the time, but it's very cool how they flip and they can show you extra KPIs, right?
Yeah, yeah. I thought that would be a good addition. I don't know what you would add. I don't know what people like to read about when it comes to players, but I assume they want to know like injuries maybe. Uh,
Yeah. And I guess it's a pretty functional and natural way to display more data because maybe here you can see the player and the team and the points or rebounds or whatever, but it's very good for the reader whenever you can add some little extra information on demand. So, okay, I like Giannis Antetokounmpo, so I want to see more about him. And you just hover the cursor over the image and then the tile flips and you can see all the stats or their origin or their height and weight. It's very cool to add those extra details.
yeah, and are the colors matched to the teams of these players?
Of course, once again, you use variables. So every player is associated with a team. And that was a big problem because I realized in the middle of the seasons, player can be traded. So you end up with one player with two teams and two colors, but set analysis. So it's only variables and set analysis, and that's it. And actually, speaking of giving more information, one of the things that I love about the Vizlib table, which is one of my favorite objects, is the pop-up functionality. So for example, here on the right side, I have a table with the players, the team, the positions, and a lot of other things. I like to add the little flag here. It's very interesting to see their origin now that the NBA has a lot of international players. But look at this. I love the functionality when you hover over one of the records. It brings up
Wow.
up with all the statistics. So you have height, weight, blocks, points, assists. And as you mentioned, all the logos and the colors are linked to the player. For example, I go here with Luka Doncic and everything turns blue. And then I go with Trey Young, Atlanta, so it's red. So this is a great way to give summary data in a table or a chart. And whenever a user finds something interesting and want to know more about a single element, they can hover over the point or the bar or whatever, and they can see more KPIs. So that's pretty neat.
Wow, so you're using Viz Tips for this.
Yeah, I wish we had best tips for every single chart. I think they enhance the visualizations and they help you get rid of other objects. You usually mix a table and a chart. So maybe you see the general thing on one side and then you see the cold number on the other one. But
Mhm.
with best tips, you can kind of integrate everything into the same object, which is really nice for some scenarios, right?
If you could choose one chart to include Viz Tips on that doesn't have it already, which one would you choose to add it to?
The scatter plot, definitely.
Okay.
That's a very good one because sometimes you have very dense areas when you can only go through the color intensity, and that's okay. But whenever you zoom in and you see maybe 8 or 9 bubbles, it would be amazing to hover over and see the details. So imagine if you're on the sales team, you can see the product and maybe a little chart with the sales trend. Or if you're in HR, you can hover over a bubble and see the picture of your employee and maybe his boss and the main metrics. So that would be amazing. The scatter plot for me definitely the best candidate.
We'll bring this up to our products team, and after they hear this, they might be convinced.
Yeah, we have to do that.
And Joe says, glad you didn't say pie chart.
I haven't said pie chart yet because they're not as bad as you might think. For example, look at this one. You have the distribution of nationality. So how many
Mhm.
players are from the United States and how many of them are international? So I can see maybe 3 out of 4 players are from the US. Or here, the rounds, if a player was drafted in round 1, 2, or undrafted, or their main positions with center, forward, and guard. I guess as long as you're not very, very greedy with your pie charts, maybe they can work. I'm not a hater.
You're not okay. I think here it works because there's not too many. I've seen pie charts with 10 slices or more. In those cases, I think just throw in a bar chart. You don't need a pie chart. But yeah, when I think not too many, I think it's great. Johan said 3D line charts.
Yeah, you remember the old ones in Excel 95 where you can put like icons, like boxes, and you can change the angle. It was really, really bad. I kind
Or
of miss
bar
them
chart.
actually. Yeah,
The 3D bar charts. Ooh.
amazing.
Or even, I don't know if you've seen pie charts. So a pie chart will look like this, but when they tilt the angle so much, you can't even read the slices anymore. And it looks like a flat pie chart. And I'm like, just throw that away. You don't need that.
Yeah, and the shadows and the labels, they were really, really bad. But to be honest, I miss them because I use them in my projects or my classes whenever I want to teach about those ugly charts, the things that you should not do. They were
Mhm.
amazing examples. Excel 95 forever. I really miss that version.
I think you can still find 3D charts in Google Sheets if you want to make a
Really?
chart. I think so. I'm pretty sure I've seen them in Google Sheets.
I have to check that out.
Yes, I think 3D. I don't think you can get as you can't customize it as much, but if you really wanted to add some layers to your bars, I think that's possible.
Nice to know.
Yeah. Okay, I want to talk about this more. So are you using DAR here? Kind of
Not really.
overview going to
I'm actually having fun with the data. Whenever you find a data set that really talks to you, you don't follow the best practices. So you start exploring and you end up with things that are maybe not very useful for the rest of the world, but it's a lot of fun to do it yourself. So for example, here, I'm not specifically talking about, the KPIs or the story. I'm going with the old fashioned tables. So this has nothing to do with the previous tab and the next tab. So in this particular dashboard, I guess I broke the rules and I just drew everything and I started working with whatever made sense for me at the time. But I think you should use the structure with your dashboard and then the analysis and then the reporting.
Yeah, but I think here it doesn't need to make sense. Each sheet has its own purpose, and that's great. So you're talking about teams here. Are you using a table to show the roster?
Yeah, this is also a Vizlib extension. I think it works very well with snapshots like this. So you
Mhm.
have the player and the name, the position, and the draft pick. So I guess this is pretty good. But whenever you have the opportunity to show data in a different kind of way, I think it's very, very positive for your readers. Look at this chart in the bottom. You have a VAR for every single game that this team played.
Mhm.
And this is the point differential. So if I had a big win, I would have a big green bar like this one. So
Mhm.
this means that the point differential, the points you scored over your opponent, it's bigger. And on the other hand, whenever you have a bar going down, that means that you lost, and you don't want to see big red bars. So that means you were really crushed by the other team. So this is a little different from the kind of visualization that you usually see out there. So you can see, for example, whenever your team is having a good series of games, so win, 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 and then they have a tough loss and they won again. Once again, if you have the Vizlib tooltips here, it's much easier for you to go to the detail. Okay, this was against the Houston Rockets, makes sense, and this one was against the Warriors. Okay, that also makes sense.
Wow, that is amazing. You have so many Viz tips on everything. I think the most I include is maybe 2 in a dashboard, but you've got them hidden everywhere. That's amazing.
Yeah, I guess I got a little carried away. I was exploring the new updates and I went crazy. So it was a long weekend and I created a lot of Viz tips for every single chart that I could. But definitely one of my favorite features in Vizlib.
Yeah, okay. Wow, that is so great. And you get a really nice snapshot. It's very clear, easy to read. I think this is good. I usually don't show variants with bar charts, but this has sold me. I think I need to use the bar charts more to show variants and differences.
Yeah, we're so used to only displaying, the magnitude in bar charts, the bigger the better. But
Mhm.
sometimes you can use it with, for example, here, the point differential or how much it has changed since last year. So depends on your user, I think. There are more analytical people that like to see these kind of things. But still, if you remember that the best use case for a bar chart is showing magnitudes, I guess you're good to go.
Oh, wow, this is great. Do you have another sheet on this?
Yeah, maybe just the last one, because, well, this one is very boring in terms of data visualization because it's only a huge table with all the stats. Another thing that I like about the tables is, of course, the pop-ups, but you can also add some references to the column names, and that's very useful in the business environment. So for example, here, maybe I don't know what FG stands for. So whenever I hover over, okay, FG is field goals made per game. That makes sense. Or this one, 2-point attempts. Okay, so now I know my data better. But as you can see, it's not very useful. But I want to
Oh,
show you this one. Maybe it's a strange database, but I like it a lot. It's a heat map, which you don't see very often.
we have
And
Johan asking. Sorry, I think it's about the differences. Could you use a waterfall? He's asking.
yeah, maybe a waterfall would be great if you're winning and winning and winning, and then you go down, you go on the road and lose three games in the row. Maybe a waterfall chart would be nice. Maybe that works better in soccer, where, for example, you have one game on your stadium and one game on the opponent's stadium, where the score actually adds up. That would be great. In the NBA, the scores don't add up, so maybe it would be a candidate. But I definitely use a waterfall for that one as well.
Okay, I think yeah, it makes sense. And here, if the games don't relate to each other, then it's an easy way to see wins and losses, just a quick snapshot, and to see more green or more red.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So this heat map
Yeah, this one
looks nice.
might need a little explanation. So here we go. Uh, in the vertical part, you see the draft class. So if you're looking at the top rows, you're seeing the young players, the ones that were drafted last year. And if you
Okay.
go all the way down, you're seeing the old players, the ones that were drafted in 2001, 2003. And then you have the pick. As you know, every year the NBA goes to the college, the NCAA, I think it's called,
Yeah,
the universities where they have their tournaments, and they
I
start
think so.
bringing those young players to the
Mhm.
league, and they have an order. So you have the draft pick, the first one and the 60th, which is the last one. So here you can select the metric that you will display. In this case, we are displaying the number of points scored. So you can see a big bubble here. So it was very, very low, which means the player is old. And it's on the left part, which means he was a high draft pick. So this one might be LeBron James, which is
Okay.
an old player that scores a lot of points. But you can see that most of the heavy scorers are in this area. So you here have, for example, Ja Morant, you have Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum. So you can see whenever you have an outlier. For example, here, I don't see a lot of players from the second round getting a lot of points. If I hover over, I can see Nikola Jokic, which is an outlier. He was selected very late in the draft, and yet he's one of the top scorers in the league. And of course, you can change the metric and all the objects respond. So now I am seeing rebounds, or my internet can freeze. Okay, there you go. Now I'm seeing rebounds and I see the outliers here. So this is crazy. So it must be Rudy Gobert and once again Nikola Jokic. So I guess it makes a lot of sense when you're involved with the data and whenever you're like in full analyst mode and you're trying to explore and see what else you can find, the visualization just come automatically. So this one might look a little crazy, but I like it a lot.
This is so great. So I have a question about how you change the metric. Are you using a variable to change the metric?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the most efficient way to do it, but I'm going like if the field is rebounds, then use some rebounds. If the metric is points, some points. I've had done it in different ways. For example, if you're using the same aggregation, you can just use the variable, some variable. But there are some metrics that have different calculations. For example, the 2-point percentage. So that's shots attempted and shots made. So it's a division. So you cannot use the variable itself. So I guess it's not the most efficient thing to do. But yes, it's a huge if. In the end, it's inside a master metric. So that might help a little.
Yeah. We have one question. It says, where is the ticker box coming from? I don't know what he means by ticker box.
This thing, or maybe the one in the bottom. I'm not sure.
Yes, I think it's the scrolling ticker at the bottom.
Oh yeah, that's another extension. I don't remember the name. I found it in the Qlik Dev Garden, the website where you can find all the public extensions. And I really liked the way it looked. Not very useful. I wouldn't use it in a professional dashboard for the general manager of a company. But here I can be a little more flexible. So I like how it looks. Not useful at all, but it looks nice.
Yes. Okay. What's the extension called again?
The extension is called, I don't remember, but let me see if we can check it here. So it might be here in custom objects. And then, God, the internet connection is really slow. I go to extensions. It's called Marquee.
Okay. So the Marquee extension. Wow.
Yeah, shout out to the author. I don't remember his name. I'm sorry, but you can go to Qlik Garden and I'm sure it should be there.
Joe, he said you can use advanced text objects too. Pierce Bachelor has made an example of it.
Oh, I have to check that out. I didn't know it was a possibility in the advanced text object.
Yeah. Wow. So now you have new things to think about. That's so cool. Joe says, I'm guessing you want to see viz tips in the grid chart as well.
Well, I won't answer directly, but maybe it would be cool to see the image and the stats there. You can find a lot of ugly examples in the Tableau website. Yeah, I've seen some really interesting things there.
Awesome. Okay, these are all our questions, and we're coming to the top of the hour. This is really, really amazing. I think You've included so many hidden features in here that you really have to just go hands-on and play with this app. I mean, just taking a screenshot won't do it justice.
Yeah, I mean, if you like a data set and if you have some spare time, I think it's the best way to work on your data analytics skills. If you're learning Qlik Sense, Vizlib, and printing, it's the best way to practice. So go out and find a data set you really love and start exploring it. It's the best way to get better at your job.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for any newcomers to data viz. Find a fun data set. We gave some examples of where to get data sets. Kaggle, Kaggle, is a great one. And just start playing around with your data. And right before we go, I want to show a quick, I won't go into detail, but I just want you to see a snapshot of something Joe Worthington has made. It's also related to basketball, and it's focused on Kobe. So here it is.
That's an amazing visualization. I love the chart on the right. It's
Yes,
crazy that you can see every single shot that he made during his career. And it's amazing how you can visualize it using Vizlib and Qlik, but it's also amazing how the hell did they manage to bring all the data in? I mean, it's crazy that there's people writing that down, the exact point in the court where he shot. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. I wonder if he has like a tracker on him or something, or do you think it's all manual?
I don't know. I think it's manual because I'm not sure if the trackers are that powerful, but it's amazing. I think this is a great visualization, especially if you want to filter, the season or when he was injured, how he changed his game. So I guess this is pretty interesting to analyze as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great, and it's a great use of the scatter plot. I mean, it's given me a lot of inspiration because when you think scatter plot, you just think, dimension measure, but to kind of use it as a map, I think that's really out of the box thinking.
Yeah,
So Joe said they have cameras now for all this, but before it was captured by analysts. Wow.
that's a lot of work.
And Joachim is saying, cool one. Yes. I mean, both apps have been super cool, and it's been so inspirational. And I want to thank you for coming on to this show. I've learned so much. I've gotten inspiration from this. I can't wait to go and play around with some Viz tips. I need to start using that more. So you've given
You
me
should.
inspiration. Just use more Viz tips. Thank you for this. And
It's been a pleasure.
yes, thank you. Cheers to another happy hour. All
Thank you
right,
very much.
and we'll see you next week, everybody. Bye. Have a great day.